I think we also have another topic.
Yes.
Something I saw on the horizon coming for a while now. It's Quarkus 3.0.
Have you been working on it? Or have you participated?
Not directly on the 3.0 stream,
Mm-hmm.
but I contributed to changes during 2.x.
Okay.
So I will get a new. I helped make Quarkus shirt. Yeah, I got the shirt for 2.0. Now I will also get one for 3.0. So happy about that. That's the best thing about Quarkus releases. No, seriously. This will be quite a step in certain regards, but also it is again not a big thing in terms of how you have to upgrade or so. It's not like it breaks everything. That's always really nice with Quarkus. And yeah, we can have a look a bit about some of the features that they will introduce.
Nice. So I'm going to share your screen. Oh, wow. That's bright.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
So, yeah, there's this blog post already about Quarkus 3. At the moment, alpha version 2 is out. So if you want to have a look.
How stable is it?
Pretty stable. I have it running in production.
Bold.
Yeah, on my private project. So
Okay.
it's not like super critical with 1 million users, but I had no issues at all.
Right.
It's basically it's the alpha 2. If you have a look, where's it? It's the GitHub release page. Here, alpha 2. So not much info here, unfortunately. There was a blog post about it where they explained a bit more. Basically, it's based on 2.14 Quarkus version.
Okay. That's the latest?
No, the one before.
Okay.
This release is already a month old or so, 7th of December. There will soon probably be the next alpha version that is then based on 2.15.
Okay.
At least that's what they announced. But maybe I saw that 2.16 is already in pre-release.
What's CR?
Good question. It's
Okay.
not. It's something like release candidate. But
candidate released?
Candidate, maybe it's there is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So you can test it pre-release, and they might fix still some bugs that are detected, but most of the times it's basically the same as the release later, or just 2 or 3 more bug fixes.
Okay.
So maybe they already base it on the next alpha on 2.16, I don't know, or they base it on the finalized 2.15. But apart from that, there are some changes. So one of the main things, also why they introduce a Quarkus 3.0, is the Jakarta 10 switch. So for those from the older days, they know Java Enterprise. So it was called Java EE, and now it's called Jakarta EE. Due to some naming rights and conflicts and whatever. And the Java EE stuff was in the Java X package. And now they get their own package, and it's basically just like renamed to Jakarta instead of Java X. And that is a breaking change, obviously, because they moved the code to another package. You need to fix your imports. But until now, upgrading to this alpha version was search replace Java X with Jakarta. And that was basically it for me. So I had no other issues.
Okay. What is so this is basically like a base package where you have different stuffs in it, or what?
Yeah, Jakarta's defines a lot of these annotations that we are always using, like the application scope stuff to inject stuff. That's like an umbrella under a lot of specs or over a lot of specs that we are always using. So this whole injection stuff, like also transaction stuff and so on, that's also, I think, part of that package. Yeah. So basically, the whole annotation stuff that makes Quarkus great, but it's the same in other services that are based on Jakarta. That's the standard that they are just using, or Quarkus just implements this standard definition. Yeah. Also, they switched to a newer version, which has some changes, but it's nothing like world moving at the moment. At least not for the Quarkus guys. So they, in this spec, this CDI it's called, with this injection stuff, they now have a part in the spec where they where it's explicitly targeted for compile time code generation to make the injection happen. So in normal Java Enterprise and older Jakarta versions, you had injection working with Java reflection, but reflection is slow and is a runtime thing. And Quarkus introduced this compile time thing that they, during compile time, check the annotations, check where the beans are, check if the bean exists, and create the code that injects the beans. So in Quarkus, it's all compile time and no reflection stuff. Most of the stuff.
Nice.
And now they also created a spec in Jakarta that basically allows this, because Quarkus basically was using the specified annotations, but not following the spec, because they made it compile time. So that was not compatible with the spec. And now they introduced a spec that basically does what Quarkus, or says what Quarkus does. But from user perspective, not much changes here. Hibernate 6 is not yet in the alpha releases, maybe in the next one.
Which one did we use?
5.
Okay.
5 point something is in the current version.
Okay.
Yeah, it's faster, safer, better. It's always
what
good.
else?
Yeah. They say check out this presentation. I didn't find it so awesome as they describe it here. I had to read a bit around. So one of the things is that in the past, Hibernate was really focused on only providing stuff that every database supports. So it was like the minimal set of features that all database systems support.
Okay.
Which is quite a problem because the database systems have evolved a lot. For example, in Postgres, you can also have columns that contain JSON or arrays, and you can even index the fields in the JSON in a column, in a table, and then make queries and whatever. You can do a lot of stuff with that.
Okay.
And there was no direct Hibernate support for that. You always had to then resort to writing your own queries without the real Hibernate support and stuff. So that is something they want to improve on. And so it's also a switch in the mindset to move more towards supporting these new features, but also providing one common way to support them. So you can define them in the Hibernate feature, and if it's a bit different named in different dialects, like MySQL versus Postgres or Microsoft SQL, then they translate it. So it's more database agnostic then again. So that's one nice thing. And also, if I remember correctly, they also wanted to move towards compile time stuff. So the named queries that you usually write with the Hibernate query language that they will be compiled at compile time, and code will be generated, so it's quicker at runtime.
Okay. Nice.
Then, yeah, I mean, new MicroProfile version for sure has a lot of new funny things to see, but I also have to get into what all of that is, because MicroProfile has grown a lot to a lot of sub projects. So we will see what we find there in the future.
So I can see Eclipse MicroProfile. This is the IDE Eclipse, or what is this?
No, it's
just the name.
Yeah,
okay.
It's because it's part of the Eclipse Foundation.
Ah, okay.
Or yeah, Eclipse Foundation, Eclipse Project. I don't know exactly how it's called. Yeah, and MicroProfile is the effort to standardize more stuff that you usually need in the Java world.
Okay.
So, for example, the fault tolerance stuff that we had a look last time at.
Yeah.
That's part of MicroProfile. So MicroProfile specifies these annotations like retry. And then you have different packages that can implement this, like smallRy is one package that implements the retry and annotation and the others. So
okay.
it's always like there's a standard definition, and then there's different implementations, and Quarkus uses smallRy in that case. Also the health stuff, the health check endpoints, if you remember.
Yeah.
That was also MicroProfile. And then there's metrics for recording metrics during execution and stuff, like how often has this endpoint been called and stuff. So there's a ton of stuff in there.
Okay, nice.
One cool thing, we will get HTTP 3 support. So until now, there's only HTTP 2 support in Quarkus. I mean, HTTP 3, it's still quite new. Not a lot of services supported yet, but it's nice to just get it. And it's something that Vertex is handling, so you should not really have to do anything with it, but you get the benefits.
Okay, so as an iOS developer, I have no idea what HTTP 3 is. What's the difference from 2 to 3? Do you know?
So HTTP 1 is basically what you know from HTTP. You send a package, server sends a package in response. And if you then want to use HTTPS, then you need to create a session first. So you have an encryption key. So you send a package, the server sends a package, you send another package, and then you can start talking encrypted. And you do this for every call. So if you want to make a call, you do this round trip, you get a key for encryption, and then you close the connection again, at least most of the times. Only if you if you have a socket or so, then you keep it open, but normally you close this connection again. So in HTTP 2, there's the option to have a enclosing connection where you do this once, this encryption talk, and then in this you make your calls. And in HTTP 3, they use UDP instead of TCP. TCP is an underlying layer in the easy-OSI model. And TCP has one advantage. You can just send a package and the protocol makes sure it will arrive there, and it will arrive there in the same order as you send it. However, for example, if a package gets lost, then TCP recovers that, so it sends it again. But to make sure you get the same order, you might block and wait with the remaining packages to send until the other package was received. So you get a bit of traffic jam, just waiting for the one that was lost to come. And HTTP 3 tries to get around this by using UDP. So UDP is basically fire and forget. But in the layer on top of UDP, then they implement stuff to allow you to get your data in an order, at least if you want to, but also make parallel requests and so on.
Okay.
So this just helps to avoid this traffic jam problem.
All right.
So this should bring a bit of performance boost or around, especially if you have a shaky connection, like on mobile, then this can really help, because not everything is waiting for the one package. But if you have different requests in parallel, like in an app, you load a list of products, for example, and you load 20 images because the user can see 20 images, then they basically are parallel calls and they don't have to wait for each other and stuff. Then I/O Uring. Again, something you will not have any contact with, hopefully. That's something very low level in Linux. And I heard Microsoft is also working on something for Windows, but since most of the servers are running on Linux anyway, so it's not a big issue. That's basically a way to parallelize the I/O calls made with the kernel. So it's really low-level OS system stuff. And at the moment, I/O calls to the kernel are blocking. And so Quarkus or Vertex has to wait for the kernel to return. And this Uring basically adds a U buffer or a buffer, and you can just insert your request to the kernel into that buffer. And there's also a buffer on the result side, and you can take this responses from the buffer when you're ready. So this works really well with event loops, because when you have something, you just put it in there. There's nothing blocking. You just put it in the buffer, and when your loop runs and you check the next time, maybe there is something in the buffer now, in this result buffer, you can take it and process it. Nice. So this works really well with event loop stuff, which Vertex is using. And I've heard reports of massive improvements in I/O bound stuff. And
nice.
I mean, if we do web servers, what are we doing? We are making web calls. We receive calls, we make calls, we make database calls, and so on. So this can really be a game changer.
But the I/O means that this is actually about databases and files, or is this in general every request you're doing?
Yeah, databases, files, but also like web requests is also I/O.
Nice.
Yeah. So this, from what I read, they have big improvements there already. So really looking forward to it. However, it requires the operating system to have this feature. I don't know exactly which operating systems already have it implemented, but probably we will get more news about what container supports it. And if you use the standard Quarkus containers, then I'm pretty sure they will have support for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, normally your Quarkus server will be running in some kind of container, right?
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a problem anyway.
Well, the underlying host system would still need to support it. Because the container is just like a virtual thing. It's not like a virtual machine.
Okay.
It's only you only run like a process on the host system that is isolated.
So you can't emulate this.
Yeah. And if you would emulate it, then you still have to wait somewhere to make these calls. So you would lose the benefit again. I guess, at least. Then also virtual threads, also known as Loom, is a project from Java, from the newest Java versions. It's just a different way to structured concurrency. It's basically a way to. So normally, if you create a thread, that's a costly operation, and switching to a thread, an OS thread, is also a costly thing. So you would want to avoid this thread switching. So Vertex, for example, they have one thread for as many threads as you have cores
Mm-hmm.
for event loops, and then you mainly try to just run on this single thread with the event loop and never block this thread. So you never have to switch to avoid this costly thing, and that makes it really fast. Virtual threads have the idea that you can reuse your standard Java thread code basically, and have lightweight threads that you can easily switch to, or Java automatically can then easily switch to. And with that, you can stay in the normal blocking thread model. But underneath it, there's some abstractions that make it work quickly and without the actual OS thread switching stuff.
But wasn't this, or is this? Let's see. I don't really remember the. I know that we had to put suspend down for.
Yeah, suspend is coroutines.
Oh yeah, coroutines. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an alternative to it, or
Yeah.
okay.
Coroutines is an alternative to it basically, because coroutines is just a fancy way for callbacks.
Okay.
So when you have a coroutine, you basically, the compiler rewrites the code and adds callback stuff. But if you really code with callbacks, you won't understand your code anymore. So coroutines just automate this process of making the ugly code.
Okay.
And virtual threads, then they behave like normal threads for the user mostly. And the nice thing about this is that a lot of stuff in the Java world, especially enterprise world, was built on the thread model, on having one thread per request. Before event loops, that was the normal model. There comes a request, you open the thread, and in this thread you handle it.
Okay.
And then also in the thread context, they stored variables and context stuff, like the request context. And with Loom, this should then work better. There's still some smaller issues with database drivers. So the JDBC drivers, they manage to really allocate the thread, the real thread, and then the whole system breaks down and this is slow again. But they will certainly fix this in the future, and then it might also be an interesting solution. And then maybe again, we can use the normal standard blocking model, which I would recommend anyways, because it's just simple. But then with basically kind of the same performance as reactive with mutiny or suspend functions.
Okay.
That's the real benefit. Like having the most stupid, simplest programming model ever, but still getting the performance of the more complicated models like coroutines, where you have to know a bit about coroutines, or mutiny, where you get reactive style code, which I personally hate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and also some more stuff like they want to update the underlying systems that are used in Mutiny to newer Java stuff. Well, newer Java 9. I think we are at 19. But still, it's newer than what they used until now. However, we have to remark they only recently cut off Java 8. So until a couple months back, they still supported Java 8. So you couldn't use Java 9 features. And so at the moment, they only support 17 and 11, the LTS versions. So now they can actually make use of it. And also one nice thing, if you use gRPC, they have a new gRPC server, and it's the gRPC server that is directly integrated with Vertex. So until recently, it's also now part of the 2.15, I think, 14 or 15, that you have to, or can switch to the Vertex gRPC server. I think at the moment you still have to set a property, But you can switch to that server. It should behave the same for you, only that the port is the same as the normal vertex, so 8080, instead of some other port for some other server they started recent or before that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
that's basically about it, what's in there, at least from what they have told us until now. In every single point here, there's a lot. I mean, you see how long we have already talked about it.
I don't know what you mean.
One more thing, maybe the release plan. So since there is now a big ecosystem around Quarkus.
Cadence release, that's the one. CD.
Sorry?
Cadence release or cadence release. I don't know how you.
That's the CR.
CR.
Okay. So what they plan to do is to provide an initial Quarkus 3 release and then 3.x releases, and also at the same time still provide 2.x releases. Because there's now a large ecosystem, for example, in the Quarkiverse with separate extensions, not just from Quarkus directly, but from other contributors. And just to give them time to migrate to the 3.x release. So they will provide the 2.x and the 3.x versions in parallel for a while to give these contributors more time to upgrade. And then you can just see, is your stuff that you need already supported or supports already Quarkus 3? Then you can switch. Or not, then you still have to stick with 2.x. And over time they will provide more and more with the 3.x. Okay. And also there's, they say they hope for February to provide a 3.0 final.
Nice. So normally if you have a major release, then it's breaking changes?
Yeah.
How much breaking changes are there actually?
As I said before, for me, in my not so big service, it was mainly just replacing Java X with Jakarta, the package. So I just made a search replace over the whole project.
Okay.
But there is even a script for it. So you can download this upgrade script, some open rewrites receipt. It is quite long, so I stopped reading through it. Maybe there's some UI for this, but yeah, you can just run this and it should do most of the work for you.
Okay.
But the most of it is detailed stuff. And like I said, I mean, my project is not too big, but I use a lot of extensions. So I have MQTT, REST client, REST easier, obviously, database with Hibernate and Postgres and health and chip and gRPC and I don't even know. So I used a lot of the extensions, like putting all the nice things into there. And but still I had no issues.
Could they theoretically break?
Probably there's stuff that can break. I mean, it's an alpha version. But also, if you try out this upgrade script here, and if you find stuff that is not upgraded yet, open a ticket for them. Let them know so they can improve the script so that when there's the 3.0 final release, that the people don't have the same problems anymore. So give it a go, have a look and try it out if it works for your project already. And if not, let them know.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's about it, about Quarkus 3.
Nice.